So I've had a few questions about the exam study packet, chapter 8, number 9, and there are 6 types of event that I want you to be ready to analyze in the framework for chapter 8 and 11, the short and long run event analysis in the competitive markets framework. Anyway, I've got a demand event in another screencast that I put up either in the slides for the class or as a separate screencast. Let's do 2 more. This first one and then another one I'll post in a few minutes. The types of events are demand events, variable cost events, and fixed cost events. And obviously demand could go up or down, variable cost could go up or down, fixed costs could go up or down. That makes 6 of those events. Again, I've got a demand event on a screencast. I think it is in the class slides. Let's do a variable cost event and a fixed cost event. So let's think about a fall in variable costs. And variable costs are costs that go up as one increases outputs. So wage costs, energy costs, things that if you're going to produce more output, you're going to need to use more variable factors, and you're going to have costs associated with that use. Fixed costs are things that are costs that you pay, and whether you produce 0 units of output or 1,000,000 units of output, the fixed costs don't change. So let's do a fall in variable costs. Remember, we want to set up our event study in this side-by-side framework, firm and market. So let's do the market on the left, firm on the right. Let's use the corn market, U.S. corn market. Just why not? There's a demand curve, a supply curve. There's some initial equilibrium, price, equilibrium quantity. And then we're going to map the problem of a typical firm. I keep hitting the menu down at the bottom, and things are popping up on my screen. I don't know if you're seeing that or not. All right, so there's this initial demand curve, and we're going to just start by analyzing a case where the firm and the market are at a long-term equilibrium, long-run equilibrium, and that's just so we could focus in on the effects of this event and this event alone. So you got your marginal costs. Marginal costs are just the change in variable costs as output goes up by 1 unit, and average costs include both fixed costs and variable costs. So if variable costs change, both the marginal cost and the average cost curve change, the profit equals to the isoprofit, where profit is equal to 0 line change. Average total cost and profits equal to 0 are the same. But if fixed costs change, only the average total cost, or the isoprofit, where profit equals to 0 change. All right, let's get into the analysis. So I'm going to suppose that variable costs fall. Let's suppose there's a ratcheting up of immigration, and there's more immigrants. A lot of those immigrants are displaced farm workers. When they move to various parts of the country, the cost of harvesting crops, planting crops, etc. falls. All right, so let's just map that event. Let's say the cost per bushel falls by $1 a bushel, just making numbers up. Let's say every point on the marginal cost curve and on the variable cost curve is $1 lower than it used to be. All right, so the key to these problems is to realize that, if the marginal cost function for each firm in the industry changed, and sorry, I'm talking and writing at the same time. Let me erase that. I drew that line for a reason, and then I ignored that line. You want to make sure that the vertical drop in the market supply curve is similar to the vertical drop in the firm marginal cost curve. Because if every firm had their marginal cost drop by $1, the market supply curve would drop by $1. So there's this new short-run supply curve. And notice that price in the industry falls, output goes up, but also notice that the fall in price is not, by the full amount, price does not fall by the full amount of the drop in marginal costs. So the firms increase their output to Q1, and remember that definition of profit, price minus average total cost times quantity. That's the area of this long and skinny rectangle. This is the new price. This is the new average total cost at Q1. That's where the firm would maximize profits. And so that's the end of the short run case. The key here is notice that in the short run, profits are greater than zero. These are economic profits. So corn farmers are making a rate of return that's higher than the rate of return on their next best opportunity, growing wheat or barley or whatever. So these are good times. I guess a labor cost, let's say that the labor-intensive crops, people growing labor-intensive crops are going to be doing better than other people because of this event. All right, so that's the short-run case. Now, over time, people see, oh, these corn farmers are doing better than farmers elsewhere. And over time, I'm going to plant corn because they're the ones doing well. Notice that entry is going to happen. This is that shift to the right is the long-run entry. Can't happen in the short run, but over the long run, new firms can enter. And lo and behold, enough entry happens that price is knocked all the way down to P2, and that's where the full amount of that cost reduction has been passed on to consumers in the form of lower prices, and farms in this case are back to making zero economic profits. And the way I've drawn it, the minimum average total cost curve just is directly below the old minimum average total cost curve. So farmers are back to producing their original level of Q naught. So practice that, give yourself some events. The logic of an increase in variable cost follows the same type of analytics. Variable marginal costs rise, price rises, but not by the full amount of the marginal cost rise. Firms are losing money in that case in the short run. There's some exit, long run equilibrium, back to zero profit. So practice that case. I did it in my office hours for several of you. All right.